It's only been 9 months and America has been wildin'. So we're gonna wallow through this with the help of Tubi. The story starts with a couple being assaulted by a mysterious woman, and both are shot after being coerced into giving an address. Then, a hit and run has happened and a car has flipped. The woman in the car has unfortunately died. Days later, somewhere else in Houston, Anthony comes home frustrated to find Megan, his wife, who shows him numerous bills and informs him that their electricity has been cut off. Left with no choice, he calls Derek, his brother-in-law, to lend him some money again. After a bit of back and forth, Derek reluctantly helps him and sends more than Anthony asked for, just to stop him from asking again the following month. Before ending the call, Derek invites the couple for dinner. Afterward, Megan learns Anthony contacted her brother again, and she suggests downsizing by not buying butt injections through Klarna and working 2 jobs. Anthony refuses, promising he'll fix everything. Even though he's been saying the same thing for the past 6 months, Megan chooses to believe the scrub. Later that evening, they visit Derek and his wife Faith. During dinner, Derek brings up Anthony's financial crisis, suggesting they sell the house. But Anthony refuses, reminding him that his parents gifted it to them. Derek replies that his parents actually hated the place, but Anthony refuses to back down. Faith then suggests they rent out one of the rooms, but the idea seems ridiculous to them. She even offers to help them draft a 6-month contract for free, but Megan politely turns her down. Derek then mentions his co-worker, who leased out his guest house for extra cash. Hearing the idea, Anthony broods on it a little before joining Derek for a joint outside. Derek suggests doing DoorDash, but the last time Anthony ate all the food and was kicked off the app. Shortly after, Megan comes out, and the couple thanks Derek before heading home. When they get to their car, Megan, who loved Faith's suggestion, tries to convince Anthony, but he says it isn't a good idea. She insists that they can interview people and try it out until they have enough money to get back on their feet. After letting her talk, Anthony finally tells her that he lost his job at the factory. She immediately gets annoyed at the dusty man. Annoyed that he didn't tell her sooner, she insists they must get a roommate. When Anthony tries to reject the idea, Megan tells him he doesn't have a say, otherwise they'll have to sell the house. He tries coping, saying he'll start an OnlyFans, but she says no one's subscribing to that, not even her, and tells him to drive home. Days later, they interview lots of people vying for the room. One girl says she can do anything they want, and it sounds way too sensual. Another girl says she doesn't clean, then refuses to leave.
Yeah, please leave.
There's even a stripper who keeps flirting with Megan. His name on OnlyFans is Donald Trunk. Megan is giving him trifling aura. After a long day of awkward and crazy candidates, Megan decides to make dinner. Suddenly, Anthony hears a knock at the door. When he opens it, he finds April, an attractive young woman who wants to rent the room. He lets her inside and calls Megan to join him in interviewing her. They learn she's from San Diego, and after realizing she's ready to pay up front, they think she is the best candidate. When asked how soon she'd like to move in, April surprises them by choosing that same night. Quickly, they make up their minds and take the bold step to welcome her as their roommate. No proof of income and no background check is crazy work. Anthony shows her around the house while Megan goes back to the kitchen. A while later, after April has settled in, Anthony shows up with fresh towels and reminds her to pay up front as agreed. She instantly zells him the money.
Did you prefer something other than money?
Wow, just like a Cornhub storyline. He fumbles for words as he tries to keep his tent from pitching. Eventually, he gets back on topic, gives her the Wi-Fi password, and wishes her well before leaving. After he leaves, April changes her demeanor from merry-go-lucky to irritated. She looks at herself in the mirror and corrects her appearance, noting that all she needs to do is smile. I knew the hoe was crazy, giving us that psychotic smile. Anthony, on the other hand, goes back to his room and takes a shower. Right after, he joins Megan on the bed and informs her that April paid for 3 months up front. Wondering how she got that sort of money, Megan asks Anthony, and he jokingly concludes that she must have been pretty good at sucking glizzies. Megan then notices Anthony's giddy attitude and concludes it's because there's another female in the house. Defensively, Anthony starts explaining himself, and after a lot of effort, he convinces Megan to get freaky-deaky with him, despite April being in the next room.
You are so nasty.
And you love me for it. Girl, where that baby oil?
Days later, one morning while Anthony is surfing the web for job offers, April sneaks up on him and startles Mr. Big Back. Quickly, he composes himself and acts all cool. Then she sits with him and learns he's been laid off. After opening up to her a little, She asks if it's okay to make something from their fridge, and he agrees on the condition she makes his too. As she gets up and heads to the fridge, she touches his knee, and Anthony nearly loses focus. Shortly afterwards, she returns with fruit, and as they snack on it, she learns that Megan comes home at 5:30 p.m. every weekday. Jokingly, she asks Anthony if he's fine spending the whole day with a complete stranger, and he replies that he's not. She manipulates him into letting his guard down, and after making some breakfast, she puts on a Tubi thriller movie, but Anthony says they're all the same. Suddenly, Megan calls, so he steps outside to answer the phone. She asks him for an update about his job hunt, and after briefing her that it's going well, he tells her he misses her and wants her to come home on time. After the call, he gets spooked by April, who stands right behind the door, before hurrying him to join her. Later that day after lunch, Megan briefs Anthony about her work, and she learns he has an interview scheduled for that week. Seeing that they might soon bounce back on their feet, she changes the subject by asking about April. Immediately, Anthony acts weird, waving it off and even saying the day was boring without Megan. Coincidentally, April shows up in a gardening tool outfit and casually goes to the fridge to grab a snack. She counters him by saying they had a good time watching movies. Megan stares at Anthony judgmentally as he nervously tries to brush off April's words, but April worsens the situation by mentioning the themes of the movie: trifling, cheating, and swallowing glizzies. She sets him up to make sure Megan gets offended with him, and it works. Later that night, while showering, Megan asks Anthony to bring her a towel, but April shows up instead and silently gives it to her without revealing her identity. Anthony appears a few seconds later, startling Megan. At midnight, Anthony has a nightmare where April tries pulling off his sheets and rubbing his ducky. He wakes up panting and hides the details from Megan. The next morning, April greets Megan, who's eating breakfast in the kitchen. She sees a scar on Megan's hand and asks about it. After learning Megan got it from a car accident, a very touchy subject, April prods deeper, despite noticing how clearly Megan is trying to hide the trauma. Thankfully, Anthony shows up all dressed for his interview, so April drops it. As Megan preps Anthony for his interview, April cuts into their discussion, suggesting she make dinner that night. Megan tries to object, but Anthony agrees since it's his turn to cook. As they're about to leave for work, Megan tries to put her plate away, but April forcefully takes it from her. After they leave, April loses it, goes to her room, screams at her reflection because she's tired of her face, then takes some Ozempic. As she tries to calm down, Noel, a friend of Megan's, knocks at the door. April answers. Noel forces her way inside because she heard a scream earlier. Coincidentally, the news airs on TV about April being dangerous and wanted in San Diego. After watching it, Noel tries to leave, but April bludgeons her in the head, killing her. Later that afternoon, Anthony successfully lands the job after the interview, so he calls Megan to share the good news. Afterwards, he calls Derek and briefs him too before inviting him and Faith for dinner at his place. Derek informs him that Faith is under the weather, but he'll drop by. Before ending the call, Anthony tells him about April, the roommate they got based on Faith's advice. A couple of minutes later, Derek shows up at Anthony's place and sees April, and he loves what he sees. He tells her he's Anthony's friend and brother-in-law, and after she lets him in, he starts hitting on her despite admitting he's married. April plays along, and as soon as he lowers his guard, she pummels him with a meat tenderizer, calling him a cheater. She tenderizes his meat a bit more, for good measure. She then drags his body to the backyard and buries him there. Anthony shows up later and finds April cooking dinner. She asks him about his interview, and he tells her he got the job. To his surprise, she hugs him and tries to kiss him, but he stops her. She quickly apologizes, and he assures her everything is fine, but she must not tell Megan about it. He then heads to shower before Megan comes home. After showering, Anthony goes downstairs, and April offers him a taste of what she cooked. He tries it, compliments her food, and then excuses himself to the living room, where he suddenly staggers. Realizing the food was spiked, Anthony calls out to April, asking what she did to him, but he loses his balance and passes out on the sofa. Later that evening, Megan shows up. After spotting the roses Anthony got her, she happily tries to wake him up to thank him, asking if he's ready to get freaky-deaky, but when he doesn't respond, she panics and starts crying. Suddenly, a news report about the car crash she was in starts playing, and when she turns around, she sees April asking if she's ready to die for what she did. Realizing Megan was responsible for April's mother's death in that crash, April demands answers. Megan apologizes, but April presses her, asking why she didn't stay and turn herself in. Megan reveals she was pregnant at the time and eventually lost the baby. Rather than showing sympathy, April coldly tells her the score's even. Shocked, Megan tries to convince April to leave, promising not to call the cops, but April tells her it's too late because Noel and Derek are already buried in the yard. She then tries to add Megan to the list of bodies she's dropped that day, but Megan fights back. Thinking she's knocked April out cold, Megan rushes to wake Anthony, but April attacks again and nearly ends her for good. Thankfully, Anthony wakes up and smacks the daylights out of April before pulling Megan up and escaping the house with her. Minutes later, the cops pull up, and the couple recounts the week as a crazy experience. Despite the danger they faced, they joke about how lucky they were not to have picked the exotic dancer from the earlier interviews. On a serious note, they decide never to get a roommate again. However, April isn't found in the living room. She has escaped through the back door. Let's hope there's not a part 2 to this mess. I would ask, what did y'all think of this one? But I have an assumption already.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe now and turn on the notification because YouTube isn't recommending my videos. And if you'd like to watch more foolishness, click here